Peeps, we are back for 2026, and what better way to start our year than with some Halloween Horror Nights news and rumors. This is our first Halloween Horror Nights video of 2026. Yes, it's only January, but you know we're going to have a ton to come, so might as well kick things off. So let's start with the biggest news, the only official news, which is that Halloween Horror Nights will run select nights this year, starting August 28th through November 1st. Feels like it's earlier than ever, but Halloween Horror Nights kicks off August 28th. Obviously, we'll be there. That is officially announced as of today. More Halloween Horror Nights than ever before. Can't complain about that. And on top of that, Halloween Horror Nights 2026 is actually an anniversary year. It'll be the 35th year of the event. And when you combine an anniversary year with some of the stuff that's going on in Hollywood right now, and some of the rumors we're hearing, and of course some of the hints that have actually come out from Universal itself, it could be a really big year, maybe even bigger than last year, which we really, really loved. But let's talk about some of the rumored properties or things that may be coming to this year's event. Just as a reminder, this is all speculation and rumors. This isn't leaks. This isn't any insider information. Anything we're talking about today that actually makes it into Halloween Horror Nights this year would be great. We're excited about almost all of these ideas, but we don't know. We're just hopeful. So just kind of wanted to put that little caveat in before we start talking about the rumors. But we are going to talk about some rumors that we've been seeing in a number of different places. Starting with, the entertainment industry is shifting in a way that could actually quietly impact Halloween Horror Nights, specifically with the merger or acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery by Netflix. Netflix recently announced that they will be taking over Warner Brothers. And, this is really, really big industry news. We've actually seen some interesting tidbits in news articles that Netflix has actually been in discussions with Universal Studios in relation to bringing some of their DC properties, because Warner Brothers owns the DC Comics properties, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, that kind of thing, potentially bringing them into Universal Parks, which is really interesting because Six Flags actually features those properties now. Anyway, that's another video. That's besides the point. What we're going to talk about is what Netflix partnering with Universal Studios with an acquisition of Warner Brothers could mean for Halloween Horror Nights. Now, theme park rights are a completely different animal, but, even though nothing's confirmed and nothing is guaranteed, what this potential collaboration could result in is that we may see some very interesting horror properties come to Halloween Horror Nights that haven't been available to them in recent years. Let's start with It, Welcome to Derry. Now, obviously, perfect timing for Halloween Horror Nights 35, because not only did we just have a very successful first season of It, Welcome to Derry, the third season won't actually be released until 2027, as recently announced. So we have a little bit of an in-between year, but it allows Halloween Horror Nights to focus on It, the movies, and the first season of the TV show. It's the It franchise is iconic. Last year we had Art the Clown, as the kind of almost icon of the event. He wasn't really, but he was all over the place. But this year, having Pennywise, the iconic Pennywise from Stephen King's It franchise and Welcome to Derry, he's so instantly recognizable. The prequel series, Welcome to Derry, we loved it. I actually really, really enjoyed season 1. I thought it had a very strong start. I really liked how it tied into the most recent movies, visually, and the actors and all that stuff. So I think it was a really successful prequel series, and I would love to see Pennywise at Halloween Horror Nights. I can just imagine the merchandise, the roaming Pennywises, maybe more than one clown roaming. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But what bringing Welcome to Derry affords Halloween Horror Nights is some of the more iconic settings from those books, or from the book, the movies, and the TV shows, perhaps making them way into a Halloween Horror Nights house, including sewers, The small town of Derry, it like the HHN blueprint is there. And if Universal wanted a headline IP that feels, classic, terrifying, and worthy of an anniversary, it certainly fits the bill. Also from Netflix, we have Stranger Things 5. Now that Stranger Things is over, recently aired its final episode, Stranger Things 5 allows Universal Halloween Horror Nights to do a definitive Stranger Things house that is basically a victory lap. They can feature scenes and characters and creatures from all 5 seasons of the series, up to and including the final season of the series. They've obviously featured Stranger Things a few times before, but you'll get the final moments, the biggest moments. They can, do a best of and feature Stranger Things 5 and have like a Stranger Things, mega house. This one's strongly rumored, just like Welcome to Derry. The only thing is, Stranger Things and Welcome to Derry, kind of similar, not visually. And I will say that's one thing that sets them apart. Visually, very different. Welcome to Derry, set in the 60s. Pennywise, very different. Story-wise, there's obviously shared elements. Kids, evil, fighting an otherworldly evil. So, will they feature both properties at the same event? Possibly, because they are so visually different, but it is kind of interesting that both properties are rumored to be featured this year at Halloween Horror Nights. Stepping outside of the Netflix Warner Brothers acquisition, there's actually a rumor that Resident Evil could be featured this year at Halloween Horror Nights. Now, Resident Evil marks its 30th anniversary in 2026, and additionally, we're getting Resident Evil Requiem, which is the 9th game in the main series, and HHN actually has a history with the franchise. Resident Evil is modular. It's got video games, it's got movies, it's got TV series. You've got all sorts of different creatures, zombies, locations, the police station, Raccoon City. I mean, it is, and of course, not just Raccoon City, but everything that's been featured since Resident Evil 4, where they've ventured out into the world. I think there's so many different opportunities to do Resident Evil that you could do a number of different Resident Evil houses over the years without really any similarities other than, perhaps the featuring of zombies. But even those have evolved throughout the series. But 30th anniversary of Resident Evil, it makes a ton of sense for that to be featured at this year's Halloween Horror Nights, again, which is also celebrating an anniversary. And Blumhouse is almost a given at this point. Halloween Horror Nights and Universal have teamed up with Blumhouse for a number of years. And this year, because they're so creatively tied together, there's a couple of opportunities that could come to this year's event, including the return of Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 released at the end of 2025. It was a hugely successful house at last year's Halloween Horror Nights. So I would, not be surprised that they would want to bring Five Nights at Freddy's back. I do know, obviously, between the puppetry and all that stuff, there's a lot of logistics around it. But it was so successful. The puppets are already created and were expensive. I would not be surprised if they dug them back out, reused them, because where are they? Where are those puppets? I mean, people probably know, and I just don't know. But they spent a lot of money on those puppets. Might as well use them again. They look the same in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 that they did in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. So maybe we'll see Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Maybe we'll see Black Phone 2. Black Phone 2 came out this past year. The Grabber, an iconic new horror slasher character. The movie itself did pretty well. We know The Grabber and Black Phone have been featured at other Universal-owned properties, notably Universal Horror Unleashed, where you can stand in the phone booth, you can see some props from the movie. The Grabber does some meet and greets around the Premiere House restaurant. So maybe we'll see Black Phone 2. I would actually be very happy about Black Phone 2 coming to the event, because even though I didn't love the movie, I didn't find it particularly scary, I thought it was so visually well done. You've got the campgrounds, you've got snow and winter and ice, visually very, very exciting. So it would be cool to see that come as the cold house this year. You can have fake snow, you can have the campgrounds, you can have the ice and stuff like that. So hopefully Black Phone will be featured in some way, shape, or form. Don't know, but we'll see. One of the biggest rumors I'm seeing online is that Hellraiser will finally be coming to Halloween Horror Nights, and that we will finally see Pinhead, whether it's the original iteration of Pinhead or the newer iteration of Pinhead, I don't know, maybe both, but Pinhead and the Cenobites may be featured at this year's Halloween Horror Nights event. You know, there's no better time than a big anniversary year to bring in a huge property like that. I know that's something that has been hoped for by fans and the creative team behind Halloween Horror Nights for years. So it would be very, very cool if Hellraiser was featured at HHN 35, and it is one of the most heavily rumored properties coming to this year's event. So fingers crossed we'll see Hellraiser finally featured at HHN. Now, obviously, we've been talking about some of the IP properties, but let's talk about some of the original stuff and what may actually be a little bit of the backbone, the story thread of HHN 35. Because last year we had the conservatory, right? The conservatory kind of, permeated throughout all of the different scare zones of the park, and kind of fed the story of El Artista, a Spanish haunting in the park. And so it was kind of, the whole theme was this conservatory, the gargoyles, the statues, the stained glass windows. So I think that was very successful, if you took kind of an iconic theme and combined it with iconic characters, you may get what we're seeing as a potential rumored theme for this year's event, which is that Jack the Clown versus Dr. Oddfellow. This is something that Universal has, either officially or intentionally or unintentionally been hinting at since Dr. Oddfellow was featured in a previous Halloween Horror Nights as the icon of that event. He talks some smack about Jack. And then last year in El Artista, again, kind of the main iconic house of last year, featured some hints that Dr. Oddfellow would be returning in kind of the last weekend of the event. Dr. Oddfellow symbols were seen around the house, that kind of thing. Kind of a hint, or at least fans took it to be a hint that, hey, Oddfellow's going to be back in HHN 35. We also know that Jack tends to come back for anniversary years. He's actively being featured as a character in Horror Unleashed, so it would be very cool, even though 35 isn't a big anniversary year, not like 50 or 25, but it's still an anniversary year. It's still a year that ends in 5 or 0, that we may get the long rumored Jack versus Oddfellow theme behind the event. Maybe not versus, maybe teamed up together, maybe, in some way, shape, or form, it'll feature both characters. But, the rumors are definitely pointing to those characters being featured at this year's event, which I love. I love the idea of a story thread continuing. I do like when Universal does that. I hope that if they do something like that, they add some genuine story behind it, some genuine continuity behind it, because I do think that's something that, as much as I love Halloween Horror Nights, original properties, and stories, that's something that they, could definitely, improve upon, which is having an established continuity, having a storyline, having something documented, a story Bible, or something like that. That's not fan put together, something official that fans can, read and grasp and see the story threads continues, whether it's in anniversary years or ongoing years. So hopefully they will take an opportunity to do something like that by combining two of their most iconic characters from HHN past. And speaking of original properties, HHN also has continuously built upon Slaughter Cinema, using some of the movies featured in the Slaughter Cinema houses as HHN houses. And so the rumor this year is that Heavy Metal Hell will be featured as one of the original property houses, coming out of its very successful feature at Slaughter Cinema 2. But finally, let's talk clowns. We've talked about Pennywise. We've talked about Jack the Clown. Where does that leave Art the Clown? Art the Clown was so iconic at last year's Halloween Horror Nights event that, it would be surprising if he wasn't back for 2026. Now, I have not seen this as heavily rumored as some of the other things we've talked about in this video, so do not know. It may not happen, but Terrifier 4 is coming out this year. Supposedly the last film of the Terrifier franchise, if that's to be believed, is is this an opportunity to be a year of the clowns at Halloween Horror Nights? Will we have, will we have 3 different clowns, 3 different, creepy, carnival figures, featured at this year's event? I think it's unlikely because, that's a lot of clowns, but I could be wrong. It would be, if you have a fear of clowns, it's not a good year for you, but it would be cool. And Art the Clown was just so popular. The roaming Art the Clown, it was so popular on social media. The Terrifier house with the wet path, so popular on social media. It would be interesting if Universal doesn't take advantage of that for another year, because it certainly brought a lot of attention to last year's event, even more social media popular and than ever before. So it would be interesting to see if they brought it back, especially because of Terrifier 4. But again, I haven't seen that as strongly rumored as some of the other properties we've talked about today. Total rumors right now, it is January. We won't obviously have full details until this summer. Hopefully we'll have announcements within the next few months, as to what's officially coming to the event. But that being said, regardless, it's an anniversary year. It sounds like they're treating it as such, and we've got some really exciting rumored properties that if even half of them are true, this is going to be a big year, just as big, if not bigger than last year. So we will definitely be there. But what about you? What are you hearing about Halloween Horror Nights? What are you most excited about that we talked about today? Will you be there this year? Now that the official dates are coming out, are out, August 28th through November 1st, when are you planning on going? We will obviously be there to see you in the fog. But let us know in the comments down below your thoughts about this video, your thoughts about Halloween Horror Nights 35. And while you're down there, give us a thumbs up on this video because it lets us know that you want to see more Halloween Horror Nights content. You always do, but it lets us know. And hit the subscribe button and notification bell so that you are notified when we release that content. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.